When I switched, we were at about 20,000 readers, and since then we're now close to 70,000. Before, almost all of the list growth was coming from my personal social. So if KATELYN doesn't tweet, the list doesn't grow. Now, because of the creator network, I have opportunities to get discovered. I'd actually be saving money, and y'all are gonna bring me sponsors? How is this a thing? How is this an opportunity? I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. I had a VC-backed tech company, and from the outside, everybody thought that we were doing great. Forbes said we were gonna be the next LinkedIn for women, and we totally didn't do it. It was a blazing disaster. It did not go to plan. I had to go personally bankrupt. I was so burned out after that, and I was really just trying to figure out what was next. And so I started consulting. It'll bring a little bit of money in, and the only person I can disappoint is myself. And as I would sit down with the founders of these companies, many of whom had raised, tens of millions of dollars in funding, had like high-profile customers, I was asking the thing that I need to know as a marketer, which is tell me about your customers. They just didn't know. They didn't know nearly enough. And so it got me really excited about this problem, which was companies that want to grow need to understand their customers. And that's what led to me starting the newsletter, Why We Buy. It was never intended to be what it's become. It was really just going to be a marketing channel for a future insights agency I wanted to build, but then I got pregnant. And as I was a new mom, people started reaching out saying, hey, we love the newsletter, can we sponsor it? And I was like, what? What do you mean? I had no idea that was a thing. One of the first brands that reached out, the offer was $1,200, which I thought, that's not bad for something I'm going to be writing anyway. So I threw away the idea of the insights agency and went all in on kind of the newsletter, and then started creating a few specialized products for that audience that helped them to better understand their customers. Nathan reached out to me and asked me to be on his podcast. And afterwards, he said, hey, we're doing this new thing at KIT, and it might be an interesting thing for you. We're actually gonna start helping creators find sponsors for their newsletter. I said, that's brilliant. I, at the time, was on another platform. I had no huge allegiance to it, but I was using Sparkloop. And so for me to move over to KIT, I'd actually be saving money because I wouldn't have to pay for the Sparkloop subscription separate. I wouldn't have to pay for my email platform separate. So I'm gonna save money, and y'all are gonna bring me sponsors? Like, how is this a thing? I think the thing that we're doing with KIT that's having the biggest direct impact on revenue growth really is the personalized welcome sequence. We're in kind of this exciting growth mode where we're really focused on building flywheels in the business. Email is the main element in that because it connects all of the other things that we're doing. We recently launched a new onboarding sequence where people are asked to kind of identify what their major pain point is. Then we actually created targeted welcome sequence for them based on those pain points, and it's been hugely successful. I think we saw a 30% growth in the sale of those two products over the last 3 months. Imagine going to somebody's house and you're greeted with, a drink at the door, and there's this beautiful spread put out for you, and you really feel valued. I feel the same way about the welcome sequence for a newsletter. A lot of times you'll just sign up for a newsletter and you'll just start getting pitched their stuff right away. But I really thought about how do we create this really wow-worthy onboarding experience. So I'd say that now we can make that really personalized, which before our welcome sequence was more of an afterthought. I always like to test things before you actually go out and build them. If there's not a lot of demand for the thing that you're building, you don't want to spend months and months creating this new program if people don't want it. So I have a partnership with the Man Curve, and we have a program called Unignorable, which is a personal branding program for entrepreneurs. We built a waitlist, and so we ran a pre-order campaign, which worked well. We had 50 spots available, and I think we sold those 50 spots in under an hour. Because of the success of that pre-order campaign, when we actually launched the official cohort and opened the doors, we had another 200 seats available. My goal was if we could sell out in 2 days, I'd feel so excited about that. That'd be a great story to tell. And we sold all 200 in 6 minutes. Nobody on the team ever thought that it would happen in 6 minutes. We were like, what? Building an audience gives you this amazing insight into your customers that you don't get otherwise. I get to have so much direct interaction with people who are prospects for new products that we're building, having seen them commenting on my own posts, having conversations with people before we actually launch the product. There's a lot of words that we use on that sales page that are what I like to call buyerisms, funny wordings and phrases that people actually use in conversations or in their messages, really tapping into that pain of being ignored and then making a compelling promise that we would help them to be unignorable. That made the messaging so much stronger. And then the fact that we had proof that we had helped a lot of folks do this already. So Demand Curve had run an audience building cohort with Sahil Bloom before we partnered together. So they had evidence we can do this stuff. Within that product, we have this great incentive to add a testimonial. It can be a bad testimonial if you didn't like it, but if you leave a testimonial, you get this freebie. So we've collected hundreds of testimonials using that incentive. When I switched to Kit, we were at about 20,000 readers, and since then, we're now close to 70,000. Between paid recommendations and recommendations, I would say that it's contributed to easily more than half of our list growth, if not 2/3. The creator network, it's a game changer in terms of list growth because before, almost all of the list growth was coming from my personal social. So if KATELYN doesn't tweet, the list doesn't grow. Now, because of the creator network, I have opportunities to get discovered. There's always a sense of competitiveness in the business world where people think that if a competitor is winning, that means they're losing. And I think that in the creator world, we recognize the symbiotic relationship. My friend Eddie Schleiner, who's an amazing copywriter, has a huge email list. He said, I've just moved over to Kit. I saw that you're on the creator network and can we recommend each other? And so it's such an easy way for me and Eddie to do a collaboration, which before would have probably taken a lot more effort on both of our parts. Now it could just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go and in 3 clicks, I'm gonna support Eddie and vice versa. So it makes it really easy. Recently, I went to the Spark Together conference, and it was just cool being in a room with 300 people who are all marketing geeks like me. I hadn't realized everybody knew me. Going to a place where I was like, I read your newsletter, which is a very weird feeling. Being in this place where when I hit send, those are the people's inboxes that it's going to. That was a really cool pinch me moment. I'm so fortunate that I found the thing that I truly geek out about, which is marketing. And the fact that I get to wake up every day and do that feels like a huge pinch me blessing moment.